He bought her for just $5. Thought she was just a toy, but that girl came to rewrite his destiny. The sun had already scorched the earth by mid-morning, turning the dirt roads into ribbons of dust. Jabari Okoye pulled his battered hat lower over his brow as the auctioneer barked out numbers like he was selling cattle, not children. Next up, strong back, no known sickness. 12 years old. Don't talk much. Don't need to. What she lacks in words, she makes up for in grit. Jabari wasn't there to buy a soul. He'd come into town for supplies, rope, flour, maybe a little hope if it was still in stock. But something in the auctioneer's tone, a casual cruelty, a strip of shame hidden behind bravado, made him stop. A small girl stepped onto the block, barefoot, with tangled hair the color of river clay, a long braid tied like it had been done 100 times by her own hand. Her shirt was too big, her skirt torn. She didn't cry, didn't tremble. She just looked out over the crowd like none of it could touch her, eyes like storm clouds. Old eyes. Jabari felt a gut twist he hadn't felt since the war. Do I hear $10? A man in a waistcoat with tobacco-stained teeth shouted. 10. 15, Jabari said, before he realized he was speaking. The crowd turned. Jabari Okoye hadn't bought a thing in years, not since his wife passed, and the drought made his ranch more of a ghost town than homestead. 20, the waistcoat man snapped. 25, Jabari said louder, jaw tight. The auctioneer smiled. We got ourselves a bidding war. 30, the waistcoat man hesitated, then spat on the ground. Ain't worth it. That girl's cursed. Sold to Mr. Jabari Okoye. The gavel cracked like thunder. The girl didn't flinch. They rode back in silence, the girl sitting behind Jabari on his old Mustang. She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't ask anything. Jabari cleared his throat. Name. Nothing. You got one, right? Still nothing. He sighed. I'll call you Zuri then. That's all right. She didn't nod, didn't shake her head, just stared at the horizon, like it might give her back something she'd lost. The ranch came into view at dusk. Fields like bone, fences half-eaten by time, and a barn that leaned west like it was tired of standing. Jabari helped her down. This is where we work, he said. Ain't much. Used to be better. Still no response. You'll sleep in the loft. Got a cot up there. We eat at dawn and sunset. Work in between. That suits you, Zuri? Finally, she looked at him. Really looked. Not with fear, but something closer to defiance. I ain't nobody's slave, she said, voice like wind over broken glass. Jabari blinked. It was the first time he'd heard her speak. You ain't, he replied quietly. But you do your part. Same as me. She stared at him a moment longer, then climbed the ladder to the loft without another word. Morning came with heat already rising off the earth. Jabari found Zuri outside, trying to pump water from the well. It groaned with effort, but gave none. Dried up, he said, taking the handle. We haul from the creek now. 2 miles. Take a strong back and a stronger will. She rolled up her sleeves and grabbed a bucket. They walked side by side in silence. The road to the creek wound through old oaks and past the remains of cabins long forgotten. Zuri didn't complain. She didn't tire. She carried water like she'd done it 100 times. By the end of the day, she had hauled water, fed the chickens, gathered eggs, and even repaired part of the sagging fence with nothing but twine and a rock. Have you ever fixed fencing before? Jabari asked. No. How'd you know how? Watched. Jabari nodded. Smart girl. She looked at him sideways. Ain't what the others said. He let that sit between them a while. Others ain't here now, he said. That night, Jabari sat by the fireplace nursing a tin of beans. Zuri sat across from him, wrapped in an old wool blanket. Her face was smeared with dirt, her braid looser than before. You got people? He asked. She didn't answer at first. Then finally, my mama died 2 winters ago. Baba sold me to settle a debt. Jabari's jaw tensed. I'm sorry. Zuri's eyes flashed. You paid for me, didn't you? Just like him. He stared into the fire. I paid to keep you from men worse than me. That seemed to surprise her. "Have you ever lost someone?" she asked. Jabari nodded slowly. "Wife, daughter, a long time back." Zuri didn't say she was sorry. She just looked at the fire, like maybe she understood something about him now. Before bed, she stood in the doorway of the barn and looked out across the plains. The stars blinked into life, soft and shy. "Why'd you name me, Zuri?" she asked. Jabari didn't look up from where he was oiling a lantern. "It was my daughter's name," he said. She didn't answer, just stood there, her silhouette sharp against the darkening sky. Then, like it took everything in her, she whispered, "All right then, Zuri will do." Eli stared at her chest rising and falling. "You all right?" he asked. Clara nodded slowly. "I've seen worse," he said, then paused. "You were brave." She didn't answer, just looked out at the blackened ridge. "I thought I was going to die," she finally whispered, her voice small. Eli wiped his face with a rag. "We all do. Every time something big comes, that's how you know you're still living." The next morning, Eli found her sitting in the barn, cradling a charred little bird in her hands. Its wing was burnt, but it was still breathing. "You're wasting time," he muttered, but there was no bite in his voice. Clara didn't look up. "If it were me, I'd want someone to try." He said nothing, just stood watching her. A few minutes later, he returned with a shoebox lined with a soft rag. He set it gently beside her. "For the bird," he said, "put it near the hearth. Might help." Clara looked up at him. Really, her old defiance softened into something new. "Thank you," she said quietly. Eli just grunted and walked away. But behind his eyes, something stirred, a small crack forming in the walls he'd built. That night, as the wind cooled and the sky cleared, Clara came down from the loft holding a small, worn leather book. She held out to him. "Can you read?" Eli stared at it. It was a journal. Handwritten, faded, the leather nearly falling apart. "I used to," he muttered. "Not much anymore." Clara opened it and began reading aloud. September 3, RD. Still no rain. Papa says the creek's down another inch. Mama says we'll manage. I believe her. She looked up. "My mother's." Eli's throat tightened. "You kept it? All this time?" She nodded, even when I didn't have shoes. He reached for the book, but stopped. "Do you mind reading more?" Clara smiled just a little. "Okay." She read until the oil lamp burned low. Pages about growing squash, about cold mornings, about a girl who still believed the world could be kind. Later, after she'd gone back up to the loft, Eli sat by the fire with the journal on his lap. He hadn't touched anyone else's words in years. Slowly, he reached into the old box by the hearth and pulled out a bundle of letters tied in twine, edges worn thin. He hadn't opened them in years. They were from his daughter, still sealed. He held them in his hands for a long while, staring at the handwriting that once filled his world. Finally, he whispered to no one, "Maybe it's time," and he placed the letters on the table, right next to Clara's book. The morning after the fire, the sky was too blue, like the world had already forgotten what had happened. Clara sat by the creek, bare from the mud, her skirt hitched above her knees. The bird had survived the night, nestled in the shoebox near the hearth. She named it Ember. Eli watched her from a distance. She had changed, not just the dirt under her nails or the quiet strength in the way she moved, but her eyes, still stormy, but no longer hollow, like someone had lit a lantern inside them. When she came back up the trail, she saw the letters on the table. Her mother's journal lay beside them. She paused. "Yours?" Eli nodded. "From my daughter?" Clara moved slowly, as if not wanting to break a spell. "Are you to read them?" "I think I need to." He untied the twine. His hands trembled. The first envelope was dated 8 years ago. He unfolded the letter. "Dear Pa, Mama said I shouldn't write, but I had to. I know you're hurting. We all are, but you don't have to carry it alone. Please come see us. I made jam, like you used to love. Clara." Eli stared at the words like nails driven into his chest. Clara, the name wasn't a coincidence. He had given the girl that name on instinct, muscle memory. Now, He looked up at the girl standing across from him, her hair braided just like his wife used to do for their child. "You look like her," he whispered. Clara frowned. "Like who?" He swallowed hard. "My daughter, the one I lost." There was silence between them, raw and heavy. "She died?" Clara asked. Eli shook his head slowly. "She left." "Why?" "Because I sent her away." He turned toward the fire, ashamed. "My wife died. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't sleep. I pushed people out. I thought if I cut the pain out, I'd heal faster. But all I did was bleed slower." Clara said nothing. She just sat beside him. He handed her the letter. She read it again, lips moving. After a long moment, she spoke softly. "You should write back." Eli gave a bitter laugh. "It's too late." "No," Clara said. "If someone wrote to me, I'd like to know if they still remembered." Later that day, Clara brought in the last of the eggs and found Eli sitting with pen and paper. He scratched slowly, deliberately. His hand shook, but the words came anyway. "Clara, I don't know where to begin, but I want you to know I kept every letter. I was too proud to read them then. I was a fool. I named a little girl after you. She's strong, brave, and she's showing me how to live again." He stopped there, didn't sign it, didn't seal it, just left it on the table. Clara read it once, then again, without a word. She folded it carefully and slipped it into one of the empty envelopes. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll ride to town. Find a post." Eli looked at her. "You sure?" She nodded. "I think you both need it." They rode at dawn, through golden fields and scorched earth. Clara clutched the letter tight in her fist. In town, they dismounted near the post office. People stared, especially at Clara, who didn't look like she belonged to anyone. The clerk eyed them warily. "Can I help you?" Eli stepped forward. "I need to send this. Clara Morgan. No return address. Just send it." The clerk looked confused, but nodded. As they turned to leave, a voice rang out from across the street. "Well, I'll be damned. Look who it is. Eli Morgan." It was Daniel Croft, the man who once tried to outbid him for Clara. He tipped his hat toward her. "Little girl still working off that debt." Eli stepped in front of Clara, eyes cold. "She's not in debt. She's a person." Croft sneered. "You keep telling yourself that." Eli's fists clenched, but Clara stepped forward. "You didn't win." Croft blinked. "What?" "You didn't win," she said again, louder. "You tried to buy me, but I'm not for sale." People stopped. Murmurs rose. Croft turned red, spat, and walked away. Eli looked at her. "You didn't have to say anything." "Yes, I did," she replied. "I've been silent too long." That night, back at the ranch, they lit a fire and shared a stew made from what little they had. Onions, potatoes, and something like hope. Nia reached into her faded pouch and pulled out a small, worn photo. The edges curled like dried leaves, but the image was still clear. Her mother smiling, holding a baby. "That's me," she whispered. Kwame took it gently in his weathered hands. "She looks kind." She was. He handed it back with care. "I hope I'm doing right by you." Nia looked into the fire. "You are now." The flame snapped softly, and a spark leapt into the night. The savanna beyond swayed with the hush of wind. Kwame turned to her. "We have land. We have time. Maybe it's not too late to grow something again." Nia gave a faint smile. "Not too late." They sat there until the stars woke up, saying nothing, just two hearts stitched together by silence, by fire, and by the long, rough road of healing. Spring came slow and stubborn that year, like an elder with tired feet. The land bore scars, burnt lines where fire had clawed through. The kraal still stood barely, but the fence was in ruins and the garden was more ash than soil. Kwame had tools. Nia had fire. Between them, they held just enough hope to begin. They started with the earth. Nia knelt in the brittle dirt, scraping the dead crust with her hands. "Nothing will grow here." Kwame crouched beside her, running the dirt through his fingers. "Not yet, but it will." "How do you know?" He looked out toward the horizon. "Because this land, it's like us. burned but not broken. Nia said nothing, unsure if she believed him, but still she dug. They cleared the patch slowly, turned the soil, mixed it with dung and crushed bones from the cooking fire. Kwame said even death had its use, that nothing ends, it just becomes something else. That night, they planted their first seeds, carrots, onions, and a few stubborn beans Nia found hidden in a tin. She named each row strength, patience, second chances. Kwame raised an eyebrow. Second chances? Nia smiled. For us. For everything. Each morning, she checked the garden before the sun fully rose. She whispered to the soil like her mother once did. Kwame watched her from the stoop, sipping bitter coffee. She's talking to dirt now, he muttered. Mwari helped me. But secretly, he hoped the dirt was listening. When the rains finally came, they came heavy and loud. Thunder like drums, wind like battle cries. But the roof held, the crawl was held, and the garden drank. At dawn, Nia burst through the door, soaked and grinning. They sprouted. Kwame followed her into mud. Sure enough, tiny green shoots, pushing up through scorched ground like brave little warriors. Nia touched them gently. Kwame said nothing, just walked to the shed, brought out 2 wooden poles, and began building a new fence. Later that week, they went to market. The old cart creaked all the way into town. The mule wouldn't move unless Nia whispered to it like a sister. They sold eggs, jars of pickled onions, and 2 loaves of Nia's first ever bread, too dense, too salty. Still, folks bought them, drawn by her sharp eyes and dust-covered hands. On the way home, Kwame handed her the coins. You earned this. Nia looked at the silver. I don't know what to do with money. Good. That means you won't waste it. She nodded. Maybe we can buy a paintbrush. Kwame looked at her sideways. A what? For me. I used the paint. Long ago. He didn't laugh. Just nodded. Next trip. That night, Nia dug through her bag and unwrapped a bundle of old, folded paper. Paintings, what was left of them. One was a tree under a blood-red sky. Another, a girl with wild hair and hollow eyes. She laid them on the table. Kwame started. You did these? She nodded. Before I forgot who I was. He pointed to the girl. She looks angry. She was. He looked at her. Is she still? Nia paused. Not as much. Weeks passed. The homestead changed. The garden bloomed. The fences held. Nia painted, on with scraps, on the crawl door itself. Sunsets, birds, a girl standing tall beside a man under a baobab tree. People noticed. Locals came, some to trade, some just sit and talk. To meet the girl who painted fire like it had a soul. Kwame said little, but he kept an extra stool on the porch, just in case someone stops by. One day, a letter came. Kwame opened it with trembling hands. Baba, I cried when I read your note. I didn't know if you'd ever write. I'm in Kisumu now, married, 1 son. His name is Matthew. I tell him stories of the plains, of you. If you ever want to meet him, we're here. Love, Ayana. Kwame folded the letter. I think I need to see her, he said softly. Nia blinked. Will you come back? He nodded. This is home. She smiled. Then go. He packed a small bag. She handed him a jar of pickled onions and her favorite painting, the sunrise over their garden. For her, she said. He was gone for 4 days. Nia tended the garden, fed the mule, patched the roof, hauled water from the stream. But she missed him, not because she needed help, but because the silence felt heavier without him. On the 5th morning, she heard the cartwheels on the trail. Kwame stepped down slowly. No words, just a nod. His eyes were red. His arms held a wooden box and a sketchbook. He drew you, he said, handing it to her. Said you looked like a warrior. Nia flipped through the child's crayon scribbles, her smile growing. Inside the box, new paints, a brush wrapped in soft cloth. That night, she painted until the stars came out. Not fire this time, but dawn, bright, wild, stubborn light. She signed it, gave it to Kwame. He hung in the crawl just above the door. "I think we're almost whole," he said. Nia didn't answer, just stood beside him, watching the tall grass ripple like waves. The sun returned to the plains with fire in its breath. June brought heat that split the ground and stole moisture from the skin. But the garden, Nia's garden, thrived. Carrots like gold fingers. Onions are fat and sweet. Beans twisting up toward the sky like they were trying to touch the stars. Each day, Nia rose with the dawn, braided her hair with twine, walked the rows barefoot, whispering to the leaves. The land listened. Kwame watched her from the porch. He still didn't understand how she spoke to dirt and sky, but he no longer questioned it. She belonged here. One evening, a wagon rolled up the trail. Not the mailman, not a neighbor. A tall woman stepped down, sun wrinkled, boots too clean to be local, eyes that didn't blink. Nia stepped off the porch slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "You Nia?" the woman asked. Nia nodded, cautious. The woman reached into her satchel, pulled out a weathered paper, a poster, Nia's face. Younger, dirt smudged, frightened. "Been looking for you a long time," the woman said. "Name Sheriff Harlow. I don't arrest girls." She paused. "I rescued them." Nia's breath caught. Autumn came gently. No fires, no windstorms, no disasters. Just golden leaves, ripened corn, and skies that stretched forever. Clara stood at the edge of the garden, a basket on her hip, watching the land change one last time before winter. It no longer looked like the place she had first crawled into. The soil had healed. So had she. Eli spent more time sitting than working these days. His joints ached. His breathing slowed. Clara noticed how long it took him to rise from the porch, how often he stared at the same patch of sky, as if trying to remember something he'd once loved and lost. One morning, she brought him coffee. He didn't take it. "I think," he said softly, "I'd like to see the ocean." Clara blinked. "What?" He smiled. "Always wanted to. Heard it's loud and endless, like thunder you can touch." She sat beside him. "Then we'll go." He looked at her, uncertain. "It's a long ride. You don't have to." She reached for his hand. "You're not doing it alone." They left the ranch in October, leaving it in the care of a neighbor boy who'd always admired Clara's garden. The wagon was packed with quilt, jars of jam, 2 paintbrushes, and a folded letter from Rose wishing them safe travels. They traveled slowly, through Kansas wheat fields, across the Ozarks, down long winding roads lined with trees burning red and orange. Clara sketched the journey as they went. Faces of strangers, crooked towns, a river that looked like liquid glass. Eli told stories about his first horse, a storm that carried a cow 2 miles, and the time he got lost in the woods for 3 days and survived on dandelions and sassafras. Clara laughed. She hadn't laughed like that in years. They reached the sea in late November. It was wilder than Clara had imagined. Waves slammed into the rocks like the world was cracking open. The air was sharp and salted. Birds screamed overhead. Eli stood at the edge of the beach, boots sinking into the sand, arms crossed. He said nothing for a long while. Then, "I wish I'd seen this with her." Clara stood beside him. "You're seeing it now. For both of you." He nodded. The wind caught his hat and flung it into the water. He didn't chase it, just smiled. They stayed in a small house overlooking the shore. Clara painted every morning, capturing the ocean in shades of blue, gray, and fury. Eli sat by the window reading letters from Rose, watching the gulls. One morning, Clara woke to find him still in his chair, eyes closed, at peace. The coffee had gone cold in his cup. The funeral was simple. Clara wore black but painted a seashell on the pine box lid, blue and gold, with a single line of green grass curling through the waves. She buried him near a dune, beneath a stone that read, "Elijah Morgan, burned but not broken. He planted hope where none should grow." She returned to the ranch alone. The house waited quietly, dust floating like ghosts in the light. The garden had gone to seed, but the soil still breathed.